While Gettysburg is famous for the battle that completely engulfed this Pennsylvania town,
today there is so much more to discover during your visit, like great shopping and dining and immersive and unique museums.
Plus, Caitlin overcomes her fear of bees and comes in close contact with the supernatural during our very first ghost tour.
Oh, I heard help.
Welcome to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, located in the south-central part of the state about 60 miles north of Baltimore. This is one of the most historically significant places in our country. The Battle of Gettysburg, which happened over the course of 3 days in July of 1863, was a major turning point in the Civil War. Today, visitors can tour Gettysburg National Military Park, a site dedicated to preserving and protecting the land where that battle was fought. In this episode, we'll show you different ways you can dive deep into the history that happened here 161 years ago, from audio tours to living history demonstrations to traversing this landscape as the soldiers would have on horseback. There's even more to Gettysburg beyond the battlefield. There's great dining and shopping, truly unique local businesses, and we even tap into the spooky side of things as we go on our first ever ghost hunt.
Last chance.
For what?
To turn around.
Oh, I ain't scared.
What?
We just got to our site at Gettysburg KOA, and this site is awesome. We're in number 47, and there's a big patio that has a 6-person table with an umbrella. There are some loungers that swing, and then a fire pit. This is going to be a perfect spot to set up camp for the next few days while we explore. Gettysburg KOA is only about 5 miles from the downtown and historical areas. The property features beautiful wooded back-in and pull-through RV sites, tent sites, and cabins, plus a dog park and a pool that's open seasonally. It's the perfect mix of nature, comfort, and convenience.
I feel like with a place like this, context is always important, and we almost always stop at the visitor center first, just to get the lay of the land, and in this case, there are exceptional exhibits and films.
Yeah, there's an entire museum, and you can get tickets to the film, Cyclorama, and museum, which is an entire experience that I would highly recommend doing.
Unfortunately, for obvious reasons, we can't film the film, and they asked us not to show the galleries, but it is absolutely worth the time. It's broken down into smaller exhibits that show things such as the build-up to the Civil War, the Civil War itself, the Battle of Gettysburg, and then the aftermath of Gettysburg as well.
And the Cyclorama is very intriguing and special. So that is one of the world's largest oil paintings, and it's a 360-degree view. It was originally painted in 1884, I believe, in France, and has been preserved and restored throughout the years. It went through a multi-million-dollar restoration, was eventually brought here to Gettysburg and is part of this experience. And it was just really fascinating to see how they've kind of brought that to life and kept an important piece of history alive. Cycloramas were really popular before movie theaters obviously were a thing, and so that's how people used to go and get entertainment. And the fact that they have one here is really cool, and that it showcases such an important part of the battle. The film and the Cyclorama experience portion took about 40 minutes, and you do need tickets, but again, I would definitely build that time into your schedule here because it's giving you that foundation and an understanding of what you will be looking at and all of the history that happened here.
Now we're going to head out and explore the military park using one of our favorite things, an audio guide.
Welcome to the Gettysburg story. I'm Stephen Lang. This battlefield auto tour is based on the works of Civil War expert Professor Gabor Boret, a historian, author, and founder of the Civil War Institute at Gettysburg College.
The Gettysburg Story audio tour follows the official National Park Service auto tour route with 16 stops and includes 20 additional recordings that go deeper into the story of the battle. The narrator, Stephen Lang, is an actor who played George Pickett in the film Gettysburg. It's extremely well done and easily guides you through the park. You could just stay in your vehicle if you're limited on time, but we and the audio tour encourage you to get out and explore at several of the stops. This is Sally the dog. She was part of this regiment, and they all thought she had been killed, but several days later they found her guarding several of her fallen infantrymen, and she went on to live and stayed with them, but she was eventually killed in battle herself. So there's now a statue of her here, and people have brought like little doggy treats and things like that. Sally. There are over 1,300 monuments, memorials, and plaques throughout the park that honor and commemorate the men who fought and died during the battle. Some have been on the battlefield for 130 years and require regular maintenance and care. In addition to seeing the monuments up close, there are also several observation towers in different areas of the park.
There's a tower on top of Culp's Hill, so you can elevate yourself above the trees and you can really see Gettysburg as well as the huge spans of the battlefield over my shoulder.
Another great way to immerse yourself in the history of Gettysburg is through the park's living history demonstrations, offered most weekends through the fall.
One, two, one.
6 years old, my parents took me up to the Natchez Trace Visitor Center in Tupelo, Mississippi, and they had 4 or 5 Union soldiers portraying the Civil War. As a young child, I was just in awe. You know, I was like, my God, there's Yankees in Mississippi. So, you know, I'm still the most blessed man in the world because I'm out here, you know, and I get to spend the day with volunteers like this. And probably these gentlemen had very similar experiences at some point that I did. You know, and we still get to play soldier, if you will. Today, they are portraying Union soldiers from the Potomac Home Brigade.
The Union Army at the time, beginning of the war, there's maybe 15,000, 16,000 Union troops in the Union Army, and they're spread out mostly out in the West. So where's your army going to come from to fight the Civil War? Volunteers. They came from all walks of life, of course. These guys could have been farmers, teachers, bookkeepers, and so forth. But they ever wear a uniform before or a military weapon? Probably not. They had any kind of rifle or weapon experience, maybe target rifles, might be hunting. Most of the time, probably not at all. So bring all these guys together, they had to learn not only to operate the weapon, but they also had to learn to fight together as one weapon. So we're going to demonstrate to you when we show you our firing demonstration. Everything is very well orchestrated. They drilled a lot. A lot of soldiers said after breakfast, roll call, we drilled some more. We had noonday meal, and we drilled the rest of the day.
Hey!
Well, we just got to attend one of the living history demonstrations, and they do this throughout the summer, so make sure you check the website for when you're coming. It's typically on Saturdays and Sundays, and it's different types of demonstrations.
And depending on the one you go to, sometimes they do weapons demonstrations, sometimes they don't. As it turned out, today at 3 o'clock, they were doing a weapons demonstration, so we got to see that. We got to see them do several drills of firing, and I actually learned that there are different ways to fire. I didn't know that. I just have always kind of in my mind imagined the whole ready, aim, fire, and then everybody fires at once. But there's actually this kind of almost sequential that they did, where one would start firing and then the next and then the next. So it was almost like a machine gun effect, which was meant, I guess, to allow their superiors to see where the shot was landing. But by keeping up the continuous firing, it also protected them as well. Because prior to this technique, when everyone would fire at once, now everybody has to reload. And so therefore you are vulnerable.
Right, you're like a sitting duck. They do a really good job of helping you get into that mindset of what it was like. They show the whole process because it is a lengthy process to reload, and it's not nice and quiet and peaceful out here like it is today. You have enemies firing at you while you're trying to reload, and there's all this chaos and active war going on around you. So to think about that while you're trying to reload, of course, like they would come up with different strategies to try to protect themselves.
I think they said there were 9 steps. It wasn't just ready, aim, fire.
Right, and if you forget one, it can be detrimental. Because if you don't put your, I think it's a muzzle, I don't know, if you don't put that back in, then that messes you up moving forward. And you basically, he said, just have a club. Like it's a dead gun. It's just a club.
And then after the weapons demonstration, you were free to walk around the camp. You could meet the soldiers. You could learn about soldier life, about their rations.
Breaks.
Huzzah!
They actually had some of their rations out, and you could kind of check out what a meal was like. Somebody was cooking and preparing what looked like soup over the fire.
And then I heard one of them say that the tents, it was for 2 people. So 2 men would sleep inside each of those tents. He's like, yeah, it's cozy, it's fine.
And the soldiers were paired up because it actually took 2 soldiers to carry a tent. Each one had half of the tent. So if you didn't have your partner, you didn't have a tent.
No, I read in the museum that they could carry up to, it was about 30 to 40 pounds that they would have to carry on their backs, and they had to carry everything by foot when they were journeying across the land. And so that, you know, that's a lot of weight to be carrying every day.
So always be sure to check the park app or the website in order to find out the schedule, because these, in my opinion, are a must-do if they're going on during the time of your visit.
Yeah, it truly helps bring it to life and helps you picture some of what it was like during that time. Sorry, what are we looking at?
And I just read they call this the high water mark because it's believed that this moment on this day is what turned the Civil War. So in the interest of trying to show you all the different ways that you can experience Gettysburg, we're going to try by horse.
So we're going out with Confederate Horse Tours. This is a 2-hour guided tour through the battlefield. And I think it's going to be really interesting because you're getting to ride on the land where they actually rode horses, and like it kind of gets you into a different mindset versus just being in the car. You're using the transportation that they would have used back then.
And it's being led by a licensed tour guide who is skilled and an expert in the history of this very special place.
Yeah, so we're getting ready to meet our horses, mount them, and head out.
All right, Caitlin.
I'm going to do
All right,
two
I'm on
mountain horse
Cash.
today, and then I'm going
He's
to
a little bit of a troublemaker. He's a young horse, so I've got to watch him. There you go.
Okay, bye.
The reason this is the coolest thing you can do in Gettysburg is because of the fact that we are using wartime roads. The one that we're going to turn right on at the top of this driveway was here at the time of the battle, and it was used by the Confederate Army as their primary communication channel. If you look toward the east, notice that high ridge right in the middle of the battlefield. Whether you've read books about Gettysburg or even gone on the car tour, you may have been told about this ridge, but it doesn't appear in the history books. We know it here at Gettysburg as No Name Ridge. And it plays a huge role in the Battle of Gettysburg. After the Confederates went over that ridge, General Longstreet ordered his artillery to rush forward. And by the morning of July 3rd, when George Pickett and his 6,000 men got to this property, Confederate cannons were on the ridge in front of us to the left and right of this driveway. And don't forget, behind every cannon, 12 horses and 16 artillery personnel, officers on horseback, the rolling forges, the battery wagons, the veterinarian, the farriers. That place would have been packed with artillery personnel when Pickett arrived here.
I definitely recommend this. If you have the time while you're here, get out on the battlefield on a horse.
You're going to see areas that are only visible if you were to walk or be on a horse. For example, we actually got to see the area that was Pickett's command.
And it really gives you just a better perspective of all the rolling hills and what the actual troops were seeing or not seeing. Because when you're up on the road, you can't really understand exactly what views they had, why they were in the positions that they were. And so being able to be on those exact roads and pathways that they were taking, you just get to immerse yourself in it so much more. Andy, our licensed guide, she was telling us that only 1% of visitors actually get out and do this. And so we're kind of in this very elite league. And I wish more people did it because it really just opens your eyes to so much more.
Now we're over here on the Union side of the battlefield. And once you get down on this little trail, I want you to look back and notice. You can't see anything. The armies can't see each other. And what's interesting is, being a 1%er, you now get to factor that in to your brain that has probably been saying to you, why was Robert E. Lee thought to be such a military genius when he had all those men slaughtered, you know, like they show in the movie during Pickett's charge?
The licensed battlefield guides, that in and of itself deserves like an entire story on it. That is so fascinating.
Yeah, we learned that there's approximately 150 that are licensed, and it is really a wonderful program because interpretation is so important when you're here at a site like this.
And it's a very rigorous process. They want to make sure that these guides have the right personality, can retain the knowledge, present it in a fascinating and engaging way and an accurate way. And so there's all kinds of testing that you have to go through, Andy was telling us. And she started doing this, I think she said when she was 37 years old. And it is her passion and she loves it, and that really shines through. So if you get Andy on your tour, you're in for a treat.
So the tour is about 2 hours and you're on horseback for that entire 2 hours. There are no breaks. There's no opportunity to get off the horse. So just FYI, you're in it to win it from the time that you leave the stables until the time that you get back. And Caitlin, I'd like to discuss the horses just for a moment.
They were in a mood today.
My horse definitely was munching down a little bit, but yours was like at the salad bar.
Yeah, good old Cash. He had one objective, and that was to try to get food. And then he didn't like the water. It has rained a lot recently, and so the trail was very muddy, and there were definitely big puddles and like some water crossings. And he was like, nope, not into it. I mean, these are animals, right? Like, they have a mind of their own, and you do your best to try to control them. But at the end of the day, yeah, if he wants that grass, he's gonna go for it, and he did. But it was still such a good experience. They ask you ahead of time, like, what your experience level is, if you have ridden or not. And I think because we had said, like, yeah, we have experience, we got some of the little troublemakers today. So just know that you can be put on a horse who is much more like even-keeled, and they have personalities just like humans do.
And this is actually our second horseback tour that we've done. The first one was at Bryce Canyon back in 2023, and that was at a national park as well. And it was really a wonderful experience, and I'm so glad that we got to do this again now here at Gettysburg.
And you got on your horse much better this time than at Bryce Canyon.
We're gonna cut this out. Yeah, we're gonna cut that out.
Get ready for the food portion of this episode. As we mentioned, there are plenty of great dining options here in town, and after all that exploring, you're going to be hungry. Thanks to Destination Gettysburg, we got to try out a variety of restaurants ranging from fine dining to local breweries while we were in town. If you're looking for a unique upscale experience, the Dobbin House offers a candlelight dinner with servers in period-appropriate attire. The house, which predates the Gettysburg Battle, dates back to 1776 and is on the National Register of Historic Places. They are famous for their French onion soup and have a wide variety of options for dinner that rotate seasonally. On the day of our horse tour, we stopped by Fourscore Beer Company to grab a quick bite and a local brew. The laid-back environment was perfect after spending 2 hours on a horse. Fourscore is also a stop on the Adams County Pour Tour, which is a craft wine, beer, cider, mead, and spirits trail. You can sign up to get your free online passport, which lists all the locations, and then as you visit them, you can check in, earn points, and win prizes. Another stop on the Pour Tour, and a place we had the most delicious nachos, is Appalachian Brewing Company. This is a local chain with several locations around the area. They have craft beers and spirits, and Howard opted for their Boo Boo sandwich, which had chicken breast topped with pulled pork. And finally, Gettysburg Eddie's is another great recommendation. Named for Gettysburg native and World Series player Edward Plank, this baseball-themed restaurant right downtown has excellent sandwiches. I had the English beef, which was warm roast beef with Swiss cheese and a side of au jus and horseradish. I added sautéed portobello mushrooms, roasted red peppers and onions, and it was chef's kiss. Prepare to eat some great meals while you're here in Gettysburg. There's also a lot of fun and unique shopping, like Dawg on Bees, where you can check off another stop on the Pour Tour and try mead, an alcoholic beverage made with fermented honey, while also shopping for delicious honey products from local bees. We headed out to meet Hal. He's the beekeeper for Dawg on Bees, and what started as a hobby because his wife said he was working too much has turned into a family business.
This is a typical apiary that you'd probably find in most businesses.
A little nervous. I don't like being stung.
I got some gear for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
If you want to slide that on.
Okay.
I think this will fit you all right if you want to do a pullover.
I'm having like visions of My Girl for those of you who maybe are my age and that movie terrorized you as a child.
Wait. You want to go tree climbing, Thomas J?
I know he says they can only sting you once, but when you have thousands of bees, once times 1,000, it's not something I want to feel. Okay, getting there. How do I look?
All right, here. We're wanting to gear you up so that in case a bee would want to get in there and get a piece of you, you're wearing armor, all right?
Okay.
All right.
That sounds good to me.
All right.
Good job.
All right, let me take a look here. Yep, where's the zipper?
Before you see my death-defying bee experience, let's back up and learn all about how doggone bees got started in the first place.
If I was going to get a hobby, I'd get into beekeeping because I worked with Grandpa for over 35 years before he passed. So I've got 45 years worth of experience easily right now taking care of bees. My wife, after a couple of years, she left the bank, and I told her she needed to do something, get out of the house. I mean, if I had to, have a hobby, she needed to get to work. So she said, well, I'm just going to sell your honey at the farmer's market, because we started producing more than enough honey than we could ever use.
Wow.
So that's what really started our business. Then her mom got involved, making jams, and Jackie made the candles, and my daughter got involved making hand creams and lotions, and Grandma taught Marissa make the fruit spreads, and then she converted from sugars to honey. So there's honey in our fruit spreads.
This is a whole family affair.
This is a whole family affair, yeah. We've been in business now, 2009. My wife and daughters are the official owners of this business.
And you learned all this from Grandpa?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And it was my wife's grandpa. Shortly after we got married, it's about 22, 23, and my wife's mom came to me and said, hey, my dad's out messing with these bees, and I'm afraid he's going to trip, fall, something's going to happen to him. Would you be willing to work with him? And I said, absolutely. I mean, my grandparents passed, I think, long before I was 14 or thereabouts, 15. Grandpa Floyd was my grandpa. I mean, literally, I worked with him a lot, enjoyed the time I spent with him, and he lived to be 93. When he passed, he had over 600 in the field.
Wow.
And he was still working them every day.
Every day.
Every day. And I think his best year out there with honey and harvesting was about 47, 55-gallon barrels of honey.
Now back to the bees.
This is a smoker. And basically, this sort of calms the bees, and hopefully we can find the queens, and we can show you a little bit about what's going on inside the colony.
Cool.
Okay?
Okay.
Each one of these colonies will produce between 10 and 15 gallon of honey on average. Sometimes you can get as much as 20 gallons off a colony annually.
Wow. And how many colonies do you have?
Totally right now about 175, and I should end the year at about 200 to 225.
Oh boy.
This is a drone. He doesn't have a stinger. That's a male.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. And
Don't go in my suit.
see how big he is compared to these?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the males
don't
have stingers?
Males don't have stingers.
Wait, what?
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, their only job is to mate with the queen and die, basically.
Hey, well, look, you're fearless already.
Well, it helps to know he doesn't have a stinger.
Okay, there's a queen in here.
There is?
Well, she's not in this picture, but if you look in there, see all the larvae?
Yeah.
On this side here, it's got a bunch of larvae in here as well. So that's good.
Wow.
So we have a queen. We just got to find her.
So are the queens much bigger?
Yeah, they are. But in this case, she'll be marked.
Oh.
She'll have a yellow dot on her. Oh, there she is.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, we found the queen.
That is the queen. She's real beautiful.
Yeah, you can see like how much bigger she is compared to all of the other ones. So how old is she, do you think?
5 weeks.
Oh, wow. So is the whole box a colony?
Yes.
Okay.
A colony basically is, a queen, workers, eggs, babies. It expands 2,000 bees a day if the queen's really doing a good job. This one's a little stronger, I think. This is honeycomb right there. You can stick your finger in that. And, yeah, just go ahead and try not to catch a bee, but just rub your finger right across there.
Oh, wow. Oh. Wow.
That's the nectar.
And so how did you get into making the mead?
My daughter asked me, so why don't you start making mead? And I've never done alcohol mead before in my life. Didn't really know anything about it. And we started making 6-gallon carboys up. Bottom line is we did come up with an excellent honey to water ratio, and that's confidential, like Kentucky Fried Chicken's recipe, It's never going to be shared.
Gotta keep some secrets.
Yeah, you'll never get that from anybody else. And I found different honeys would give us different flavors.
Oh.
So based on where the bees are located, I get a rainbow of colors, but mainly a light and a dark. And the light has what I call more of an open field influence, where the dark has more woods and streams. We found that utilizing the fall harvest, we can come up with 3 different flavors of true mead, which is nothing but honey and water fermented. See, this one's going to be all honey. Poke your finger in there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just eat it?
Give it a try. Well, you're going to have a tough time getting it through. I got your finger. Yeah, no, trickster. I shouldn't have done that. That was me.
Honey, though, yeah.
It's honey.
Wow.
It's so cool.
Dawg on Bees has 2 different locations, one in the heart of Gettysburg and one about 15 miles away in Hanover, Pennsylvania. In addition to great shopping and dining, there are a number of museums that dive into the experiences of people who called Gettysburg home. First on our list was the David Wills House, which belonged to local attorney David Wills, who was instrumental in helping to create the National Cemetery that's here today. David Wills hosted President Abraham Lincoln here in this house, and it was in this room that he put the finishing touches on his famous speech, known today as the Gettysburg Address. Today, the house and museum is operated by the National Park Service and is open seasonally. 2 of our favorite museums, which are privately owned, offer unique perspectives on the impact to the residents of Gettysburg. The Jennie Wade House is a must-visit and recounts the life and death of Jennie, who was the only civilian casualty of the battle at Gettysburg.
This house is known as the Jennie Wade House, but this house is not the house that Jennie Wade lived in. Jennie and her family, they lived a couple blocks down on Breckenridge Street. Her sister Georgia and her husband John McClellan lived here, with another family, the McLean family. Believe it or not, this house that we're standing in right now is a duplex. It dates back to 1842 and was the beginning of duplexes here in Gettysburg. Now in June of 1863, Georgia, she is expecting her first child and is placed on bed rest due to how risky it was to have children back then, but also she's experiencing some difficulties with her pregnancy. So that's why there's a bed here in the parlor. Well, on June 26, Georgia welcomes a healthy baby boy named Lewis McClellan. Little did they know that 5 days later, a battle's going to break out on the west side of this town. Well, that brings us to July 1st. 2 armies conjoin on the west side of town and fighting begins. Mrs. Wade, she feels it's safer if her family's here at Georgia's than at their house on Breckenridge Street. A lot of families thought that back then. They thought the farther you'd get away from the fighting, the safer you would be. Well, that would shortly prove itself very wrong. The Confederate soldiers, they're taking occupation of the town. They're placing their Confederate sharpshooters on the edge of town. So this house is in the middle of 2 fighting armies. We estimate the house was hit between 100 and 150 times during those 3 days of the battle. Well, the afternoon of July the 2nd, you probably think the worst thing going on for this family in this house is there's a war happening right outside. Like I said, there's bullets hitting their house, there's soldiers running by. A stray 10-pound parrot shell will be fired from the opposite side of town. It will travel through town, striking the roof of Georgia's side of the house, going through the brick wall that separates the 2 houses and lodging itself in the McLean's roof, where it's going to remain for roughly the next 15 years unexploded. Well, the morning of July 3rd, it started like any other morning here for the Wade family. Jennie, she closes her Bible and says, "If there is anyone in this house who is to die today, I hope it is me, for Georgia has that little baby." Georgia later stated those were the last words she remembered her sister saying that day. After that, Mrs. Wade and Jennie then proceed with what they would have any other day while they were here. Mrs. Wade, she comes out, and she's over by the fireplace preparing it for that day's batch of bread and biscuits. Jennie, she comes over here to this bread dough tray and starts preparing the dough for that day. We believe that Jennie positioned the door like this to give herself extra protection from bullets hitting this side of the house. At about 8:30 that morning, a stray bullet from the direction of the Farnsworth house will come through that door, just opposite of the doorknob, through this door, striking Jennie right below her left shoulder blade, piercing her heart and killing her instantly. Georgia states that Mrs. Wade calmly walked to the doorway as if nothing had happened and said, "Georgia, your sister's dead." Georgia's natural response is to start screaming. 2 Union soldiers from outside hear her screams. They come into the house, see what has happened, and decide it's no longer safe for the family in here. The safest place for this family in this house is in Georgia's cellar. But to get to Georgia's cellar, you have to go out that door and in. Well, 2 boys in blue are not going out that door in direct fire of Confederate sharpshooters, not only putting themselves at risk of getting shot, but also putting the family at a greater risk for a second casualty. So they have to come up with another plan.
That's not where the Jennie Wade story ends, but we don't want to spoil it. You'll have to visit for yourself, and this is definitely a must-do when you're in Gettysburg. Right now, self-guided tours are available daily through the summer, but they also offer an evening tour called Spirits of Jennie Wade. It's a sad and fascinating story of the 20-year-old who was the only civilian casualty of this battle. And our next stop dives a bit deeper into another civilian family, both before and after the battle.
Well, small and mighty wins the day. We just finished a tour of a beautiful small museum that is a must in Gettysburg.
Yeah, this is the Shriver House Museum, and it honestly might be one of my favorite things that we've gotten to do while we are here. It dives deeper into the civilian side of things. You hear a lot about the battle and the generals and all of the soldiers who are fighting, but people sometimes forget that there were just normal people who lived here in Gettysburg before the war came to their town.
And in this case, we're learning about the impacts to the Shriver family and how there were Confederate snipers in their attic.
I am Miss Ora, and I welcome you to the home of George and Hetty Shriver. This home is built in 1860. These are the original floors, doors, stairs, handrails, and, where possible, walls. George Washington Shriver is born on his family's farm south of town. When he is only 16, his papa dies, leaving George a very large farm. It's about 200 acres and 3,000 gallons of liquor. When he is 18, he marries his neighbor and sweetheart, Henrietta or Hetty Weichert. They start their family right away, but within a few years, George sells the farm, moves to town, builds this big, beautiful home, and he is in the process of opening 2 businesses to support his family. Shriver's Saloon is in the cellar, and there was a 2-lane, 10-pen, fully enclosed bowling alley in their backyard. It was Dave and Buster's 1860. After some thought, George decides to do his patriotic duty. He's going to serve his country. He'll simply open his businesses when he comes home. He enlists in Cole's Maryland Cavalry, a Union unit. July 1st, the battle begins west of town. Soon it's pretty obvious it's on and it's coming this way. Hetty has to make a decision quickly. Take Sadie and Molly, cower in her cellar and hope for the best, or she can take them to the safety of her papa's farm 3 miles away. They run, of course, and they do take 15-year-old Tilly Pierce from next door with them. Within hours, the Confederates have seized Gettysburg. They push the Federals south to Cemetery Hill. You are behind Confederate lines. So this room is full of Confederate sharpshooters. The first thing they do is knock the holes in the double brick outside wall. Remember, the buildings behind me do not exist. It's a straight shot to the Federals, which means it's a straight shot back. Explaining the bullet holes on the outside of this wall, we know at least 2 of them are killed. In 2006, a detective from Niagara Falls, New York, CSI, contacts our director. The detective has a new chemical, Blue Star. It's like luminol. It's supposed to find old blood. He needs somewhere to test it. So Nancy gives him permission. He comes, he sprays. He finds exactly what he is looking for. All of that blood comes at least to here. It is splattered across the walls, and in some of his pictures you can tell where they tried to clean it up. You see, this is a battlefield. Men fight and die right here. 15-year-old Tilly, 7-year-old Sadie, and 5-year-old Molly take water to the surgeons and wounded. They stay out there until July 7th. They do walk home that day. They get home, there is a red flag above the door telling Hetty her home is not in the condition it was left.
Not much was known about the Shriver family until a couple who opened the first bed and breakfast here in Gettysburg started listening to people who were staying at their bed and breakfast. And all of those conversations were centered around the battle and the generals and all of those things. And Nancy and her husband were like, there was so much more to Gettysburg. And so she and her husband bought this house and decided to fix it up. And that is when they uncovered the story of the Shrivers. And so they were the ones who really truly started to peel back the layers and understand what had happened here in this home. And so they were like, well, what better story to tell than of the people who actually lived in this home and what happened to them?
And so they self-financed a fantastic renovation and restoration of this historic home and then inhabited it with reenactors. There are people in period attire who are speaking representing of people during that time. It's a fantastic way to experience history, in my opinion.
Yeah, our tour guide was so incredibly engaging, and she made it just really entertaining. There were somber parts, there were funny parts, and to me, like, that's what truly encompasses a good tour. When you can hold somebody's attention and just really immerse the person who's listening to your story in what was going on at the time, like, it was so well done. You have got to come and check this out. Hands down, like 10 out of 10. And I ended up buying 2 books. One is a first-hand account from the neighbor who was involved in the Shrivers, and when you come and tour the museum, you'll hear her story. But she wrote a first-hand account of what it was like to be a civilian during the war. She never actually mentions by name who she was with, and so the director, Nancy, had to fill in those blanks and wrote a companion book to her book that dives deeper into the story of the Shrivers. So I bought both of those, and I'm really excited to dive in and just learn more because I was super intrigued by this entire story.
And you get to see the whole house. We went attic all the way into the cellar, and including the saloon.
You can walk into 10-Pin Alley and look up on the wall, and you can see remnants of where the bullets and ammunition actually hit this brick wall, because this is the original brick wall of the house.
Gettysburg is still the largest, bloodiest battle ever fought in North America, and we hope it remains that way. Remember, though, it doesn't just happen in the fields. It also happens in the streets and homes of Gettysburg.
Again, we encourage you to visit the Shriver House Museum to hear the rest of the story, one that echoes so many others we've heard here in town.
The Shriver's story doesn't have a happy ending. Many war stories don't.
Well, normally we're getting ready for bed around this time, but we're making a special exception tonight for a bucket list item. We're getting ready to go out on a ghost hunt.
I have no idea what we're getting ourselves into. We did try and do this at another city, and unfortunately we weren't able to, so really excited that we're finally able to check this off. Caitlin, what'd you just grab? Ooh!
This is my ghost hunting snacks. And a little piece of Hershey. I need chocolate, I need sugar. Like, normally I'm getting ready for bed. I'm already tired, and we have to make it until at least midnight. So, essentials. All right, you ready? Let's go.
No ghost yet.
It's too late. Not dark enough yet. Last chance.
For what?
To turn around.
Oh, I ain't scared.
All right, we have a bag of gear that Bobby is going to go over when we get to our first location. We're going to spend an hour and a half at each one investigating, and I'm very excited. Can you tell?
Yes. We're going to go into the house. We're going to go over the history and your equipment. All right, you guys, your bags have flashlights in them.
I'm scared.
All right, so this is called the K2 meter. The power button's on the front here. Okay. Does anybody know what EMS stands for? Electromagnetic field. Electromagnetic field. EMS are what the paranormal hold inside of them. Next one is the ghost meter.
So Bobby gave us an overview of all the different equipment that we're using and told us the story of what happened here in the house.
Deborah Harmon was 31 years old in 1985, August 31st. Her and her fiance were at a local bar in Gettysburg.
A 31-year-old woman was murdered by her boyfriend. I guess he claimed it was an accident, and it's up for interpretation, I guess, on what really happened. But she can still be found here in this house, and so we're hoping that she'll come and talk to us if she feels like it. So we've got our equipment set out on the floor right now, and just kind of waiting to see what happens. This one that I'm totally forgetting the name of right now, I just know that we're looking for it to go above 0.5. It did just hit 1.5. So that might be a pretty good indication. And then this was the room that on the camera we could see orbs, what I think were orbs moving around.
What is it?
It's called a spirit box, but it's basically white noise, and that is how they're able to communicate, is through that white noise. So I'm gonna do like a reverse sweep.
Because it uses FM, that don't be fooled by like a radio station or something like that.
Right, we might hear other things coming through, and so that's why he said, like, if you're unsure, ask it to repeat itself, and then you'll know. So, all right.
Okay. So we're going to be in this spot for an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And we just found out that this is apparently the room where she died. So there's probably a really good chance that we're going to have something.
Who is this?
I feel like there were some signs that maybe somebody was around, but we don't know. Bobby put it a really good way that it's kind of like fishing. Like you cast your line and you see if you get a bite, and it's kind of all up to them whether they want to communicate or not. I'm very interested to hear what the other group, what their experience was, because we could hear a lot of things. So we don't know who they were talking to. That was another thing that Bobby pointed out. It could be Deborah or it could be somebody else. There have been hundreds and hundreds of years of things that have happened here and people who have died here. So it could be anybody. An hour and a half flew by. We're getting ready to head to our second location.
Guys, come on over here. This is a Union hospital that we're going into. This is called the fun room. There's a lot in here.
Fun room. We were in the fun room before. This EMF was going to like the second, third, so kind of middle there, which is pretty cool. So maybe there's something here.
Yeah. Are you gonna get some other tools out?
Yeah, so set some stuff up. I had officially a good time.
Yeah, that was amazing. I think this is one of those things where if you believe or not, it's just such a cool and unique experience. And that's what we love. It's like trying new and different things while you're out traveling.
Agreed.
And experiencing something that we never had before and just having this like, I don't know, shared experience.
Yeah.
It was super cool. Bobby was incredible and super knowledgeable and passionate. And I mean, I felt like we definitely experienced something. Like there was stuff going on for sure.
Hey, don't ask for help.
Help?
Help.
Oh, I heard help.
I'll help you.
Is that what you heard?
Yeah.
I'm not going to call myself a skeptic, but I'm curious, you know, and I feel like this was a great opportunity to go out with somebody who does this day in and day out. Bobby's been doing this for 20 years. What a perfect person to show us the ropes and kind of introduce us to what it means to ghost hunt. You don't want to go in there? Okay, let's go in here. Let's go back in here. What? The light's gone.
Oh.
So we were in a completely separate room. There was nobody in here. If they are moved at all, they have a sensor in them and they will light up. And that ball moved. Or something moved it.
And I like to, they have specific places that they're taking you. And just to be clear, this is not on any battlefield ground. This is not within park boundaries or anything like that. These are homes and private businesses that you're going into that they visit often. And so it's very respectful. And it was just such a cool, I keep saying experience, but that's what it was.
I know I want to do it again. And I think if we were to do it again, I would want to stay in one spot for even longer.
Bobby told us that you can book private tours, which I would love to do. So you can have up to 5 people and you can pick the locations that you go to and you could stay at one for much longer.
It's become like such a cottage industry to ghost hunt around the world.
Caitlin, congratulations. You have completed our first ghost hunt together.
Yay.
It was an honor to have you. Thank you for going along. We had a good one.
It was amazing. I can't wait to do another one.
Oh, good job, Caitlin.
Yeah.
And Howard gets one too. There you go, Howard.
Thank you.
Congratulations, guys.
If you've ever had an interest or if you're intrigued about doing this, this would be a great place to start and to just dip your toes in and kind of see what you take away from it.